Hello, everyone. Welcome to Just Jules. I was just flipping through the last, after reading after a while in the last video that I made. I was flipping through Chasing the Red, my book of poetry and prose, and I came across something that might actually explain things a bit. A little inner workings of the jewels. Sorry. And this is a bit of prose called Circling the Drain. There are moments when I feel as though life is dripping by like a leaky faucet, leaving that rusted ring around the drain from the unwell water. That metallic debris compiles into a powder, much like tears that stain the heat of my cheeks with flaked-off mascara and subsequently trail down my neck. It stains and leaves its mark for all to see. When dried, it's crusted there, and no amount of elbow grease, makeup remover, or industrial strength cleaner can remove the proof that, yes, I was heartbroken. Within my chest is a weight, the Acme anvil, and I have become quite close within the past few years. Usually it hovers over me like a black cloud, the acid rain of my attempts at doing the right thing, making people happy, sacrificing what I desire for the desire of others, shadow my every step, yet my words, I eat them often like a garbage disposal, clogged from the leftovers I had baked and left to rot in the context in which I had preserved them. They are shoved down the pipe and scoured out with razor blades of regret in a constant scream of salt water. I can still taste the metallic flavor rotting out my gums as I gnaw upon the pieces thrust within it. I try to cover it up with the fresh scent of lemons, far too sour to sweeten, but whose scent is enough to mask and cleanse. The anvil corrodes my insides with its rust and heavy nature, prohibiting the ability to cry. I remain stoic even under the most extreme circumstances. I am in a personal state of, I can handle this, I'll just cry about it later, and the ever-popular sentiment, I don't want people knowing how far they can push me before I break, and my very fragile pride-filled mantra, if they knew what button to press, they'll continue pressing it. I exist in this robotic state, this unfeeling, emotionless, mechanical existence that inevitably urges me toward the blender. The blender whose words stem from the lips of another. It then hits the frappe button and creates the healthy smoothie to fracture the anvil, prohibiting emotion, but at what cost? It is disconcerting, the idea that one can recognize the good in people and ignore the bad. Those close that have felt the propensity, felt slighted by the inclinations that I have to maintain my stubbornness when I refuse to do what was asked, what was unbeknownst to me and required. So forgetful are we of the decency and goodness of people. We spend our time focused on the negative aspects and the wrong that was done to us. The minor slights confine us to our memory, shackling us to a jaded perception of generalized and far-fetched predictions. It's all because we lack the hope, the spirit, and the strength to believe that people have the capability of change. But then we have those who hold on to the helium balloon of hope that we tie around our wrists. We allow it to lead us wherever we go, trusting that it will lead to where it was promised. Its internal GPS system of wind speeds causes us to look upward instead of forward-facing, where we can see where we're heading. Even if we could see where we are going, we'd end up blinded by the tree we'd smack into, concussed with our heads swimming with the question of, why didn't I see this coming? When we feel slighted, we often forget the good and immediately respond with an attack. Never mind the money and time spent to appease if you feel slighted. That is not what happens, or that's not what matters. My bad. That's not what matters. The concentration is on the here and now. It's not about what happened 5 minutes ago, where fallacious statements and circular arguments grabbed you by the hand and led you into a winding fox chase of red herrings. They become pickled, soured, and buried like a savage delicacy that ferments like a wine. Then there are those who believe themselves to be right, the ones who will remain faithful until it's most convenient for them to leave. It is the ones who cannot see the truth until it's gnawing upon their leg, the poison already flowing through their veins. After they had licked their wounds to initiate the healing process, that is when they realize what they had taken for granted. They regret, reminisce, and realize that the only friend they had, the only real loyal one they ever would have, was just thrown to the wolves out of convenience and selfishness. They tore the threads that bound that friendship, the memories, the gratitude, and the beauty of the whole. Instead, it shoved it into the ego, made incinerator, where it burned up with all the passive aggressive comments and age old low blows to make sure it would stay away forever. After crawling back begging for forgiveness in their meager fashion with half hearted attempts at an apology, they are forgiven and welcomed back repeatedly. But there comes a time when this circular, viscous, and toxic relationship will no longer stand the test of time, and sometimes there are only so many times one can forgive without being a masochist. There are moments when I feel as though life is dripping by like a leaky faucet, leaving that rusted ring around the drain. Sometimes my heart feels like that slippery, slimy plug of Harrod's soap, that once pleasant-smelling essential oil crammed in the plumbing, perpetually stuck and going nowhere without having to be forced to do so. My stubbornness to make it work and my reluctance to claw my way out is far too daunting a task. Sometimes I feel as though I am the product of my own undoing. I have faith and hope that things will change, and that is the ever-present bus won't drive past my house so often, tempting others to stick out their foot and trip me so I fall under it. Instead, I sit and sing to you while the water slowly drains after you've filled me up. Sometimes it's slow, but always undulating with a soft whoosh as the new portions of me circling the drain and collect within the sediment. Bits and pieces of DNA clamoring together because too much of me from years past had been sloughed off that it needed to be collected somewhere. So, believe me when I say I've been there. I've been there. That I wrote back in between 2012 and 2014. And that was around the time that I was actually right before I had my nervous breakdown. And I was in a very, very, very bad spot at that time. And there's one more that I want to read to you, I think. But that's a little walk through my brain, I guess. That was just a moment of prose. That's where I described what I was feeling. Like another one. Another piece of prose I wrote, dog-eared. Take heed and be gentle, for my pages are time-worn and wrinkled. Some fray at the edges while others are torn. I am red, you see. Others have not liked what they had read. They tore, balled up, and threw away sheets of me they didn't like. It was you, though, who retrieved them. You meticulously flattened those crumpled sheets and put them back into my spine, and you read all of me. You haven't discarded me. Instead, plant me upon a shelf and care for me. You wrap me in a dust jacket to protect me. You take me down and read from me and continue to learn from me. No whiteout, no black marks etching out my words. You protect my cover and flip through my pages with delicate fingers. You don't bend me or flatten me out. You don't place stress upon my bindings. You take me all in, and you take it with you, and that I will last. And these are just sentiments that I had. Just walk into the Julie brain. The mythical spine. Weakness has a way of coming up from behind me and driving a spike through the middle of my spine. My spine, though, is like a book that tells so many stories of how it came to be there. One may argue that we are all born with a spine. Mine, however, was created through many years, many maladies, and even twice as many instances of despair. There were times when my spine was severed and pummeled into non-existence. There were times when I could feel the weight of it spurning, pressing me down. I have found that it has gone crooked as I've wandered hunchback like a Quasimodo, twisted and frail with the slightest breath of wind that could knock me down like a house of cards. I am held together by twine, haphazardly put together and balanced, but with a single feather aloft. It's amazing what a single feather can do, tip the scales one direction or another, and how easily the scales can be imbalanced. Some are born with a spine, the lucky ones at least. These individuals hold pride in an imperceptible fortitude in the highest regard. They are the ones that can withstand the gusts that cut through the clothes they wear and drill holes through their skin. To them, the holes are superficial, ones that can easily be plugged with gauze to stop the blood from dripping down their bodies. They hide their wounds, stop them up, and in doing so, the outsider does not realize the pain that they endure. Sometimes the pain compounds, grows in its severity with every mishandled gash by passing butter knife or a serrated edge. Often pain inflicted isn't done so purposefully. Some take the opportunity to mishandle a spine when they believe it to be strong. They take a paperback from the shelf, bend it back, snap it, press it down until it opens to their liking, while they read through the pages. The once clean spine becomes creased and malformed to where the title is no longer discernible. Sometimes the binding is hard, sewn shut, reinforced with splints and acid-free glue. The durability of such a spine lasts through moves, through the jostling within backpacks, of being slammed onto the shelf and then another. The hardcover is resilient and can withstand years of use and abuse, but it too can break. The spine can be torn from the skin, leaving a small recess between the jacket of a binding and the pages. The pages on the inside cover can tear away, leaving it floppy and worn. Through the years, if not repaired, it can tear away completely, marred and scuffed, threadbare and frayed. Pages fall like discarded feathers and can slip through the creases of the surrounding pages. It is only within that semi-dismembered state when people handle it with kid gloves. They see the old binding, the misshapen, yellowed, creased, dog-eared pages falling like leaves from it, and decide that it had enough. They note the publication date, an antiquated book that spent its life in the hands of others who didn't respect it enough to help maintain its vitality. It's worn, delicate, and could crumble if placed within the wrong hands. Its scent is musty, a geriatric book whose aged perfume makes one wistful. It makes one think of what it may have looked like within its glory years, leather-bound thick with pages held together with taut and intricate gold embossed lettering. It is only when we are broken, beaten, worn out, and overused when people remind you of what you used to be. They question how you got so worn down. They tell you to grow a spine, when in fact you already had it. It just got run down through the constant mishandling and abuse of it. You cannot grow a spine if you already have one. We are all born with one. It's inherent. It is making the efforts to preserve the one we have. It's making the effort to repair it when it's damaged. Some read books because they enjoy the stories. They savor the words that envelop the mind and cultivate the soul with positive and reflective thought. Books, just as people, give life its wonder, a myriad of different emotions that cultivate empathy. If only we had the vocabulary to express and the fortitude to understand that not all marks upon a spine are intended. We misuse and abuse the most precious of things without realizing it most of the time. We think of ourselves and what we can get out of the book. We are thirsty for it and drink it from its spring before we realize that it dried up, that there is nothing left for that next person waiting to drink from its priceless font. What about the books that people disregard and believe to be unpleasant? Not everyone enjoyed the Twilight series, but does that mean that if a select few people disliked a book that it should be abused? People, spines, books should be respected no matter the opinions. Care must be taken so that privilege is not cultivated into disregard. There are those who burn the books they don't believe in or respect. They disrepute them with slander and use blatantly physically abuse them. To some, it instills fear in the public eye and elicits a determination by one author or another to refrain from taking chances. People desire honesty but lack the respect for it, a contradictory conundrum in literature today. People fear of being too honest, taking a chance and making an impact, or imparting knowledge and perception upon individuals because they don't want to be vilified or otherwise have their spines broken or incinerated. Feather to quill, I've become etched with footnotes, scribbling on the sides of my margins. I have taken notes and have been notated. I have had my spine torn from me. Through time and vigilance, I have learned the fine art of bookbinding. I have sewn myself back together, and so that my age, grace, and wisdom can withstand time. Impeccable antiques are far more valuable, and so am I. So, there you have it. Just A dance within my head. Here's one. All right. I will. One more. This one's called Paint a Picture and Paint the Picture as You Go. Behold the power of cheese and the glorious mind warp of free writing, which consists of free-flowing thought as they pass through your mind. In Paint a Picture, the thoughts are clips, sometimes incoherent, and sometimes they are nothing more than emotional refuse. I feel the need to mock this poem in the modern response I titled Paint the Picture as You Go. Through my old age, I have become quite snarky and rather adept at the fine art of self-deprecating humor. Sometimes when you look back at your old poetry, you have to remember that at one point you felt the need to write a poem about an individual or emotion that you were feeling. Looking back, one should also maintain that sense of humor and learn to laugh at oneself. Even if the poem is absolute crap, at one point you were proud enough to type it out on your word processor, maybe even share it. Mind you, I never edited the original. It's printed here in its original form, which includes the atrocious run-on sentences, grammatical issues, choppy thought process, and garbled nonsense. One particular aspect of this poem that I noticed is the fact that I used creative leeway when it came to different words or nonsensical words. That's one of the glorious things about poetry. Creative leeway gives one the opportunity to self-express using made-up words and ideas. Sometimes artists invent new languages or new words. In this case, I used the word reverberato, which to me means a reverberating vibrato. It is hilarious considering how redundant it sounds, but at the time it seemed to work for me. It's curious, though, that a lot of poets don't take advantage of creative leeway within their writing. Mostly, I believe it's due to the grammar Nazis out there who invest themselves into more concrete words, ideas, and methodology within writing. When they fail to recognize is how vastly different poetry is compared to other forms of literature. Poetry from centuries ago had specific meter, rhyme, rhythm, and form. It wasn't until around the 19th century when blank verse became a popular form of poetry. This new form of, and without the constraints of traditional formats, poets were more open to taking risks in their work that inevitably evolved into contemporary poetry and prose poetry. Although I judge my former self quite harshly, I can't help but be impressed by my imagination involving creative concepts, literary devices, and imagery. The response poem, Paint the Picture as You Go, I wrote in 2014, roughly 17 years after the original. I enjoy response poems, and I've enjoyed rewriting a few other classics of mine that I found among the dusty file folders lining my cabinet. Response poetry isn't as uncommon as one would think. In the 1580s, poet Christopher Marlowe wrote the infamous pastoral poem, The Passionate Shepherd to His Love, and had it published in 1599. A year later, in 1600, Sir Walter Raleigh published a response poem titled The Nymph's Reply to the Shepherd. Raleigh used the same tone, rhyme, and rhythm to the poem to mirror Marlowe's, so the reply maintains the same theme. Both poems are usually read and studied together. It is my belief and humble opinion that Raleigh was mocking the crap out of Marlowe. Thus, here I am, mocking the crap out of myself. The original, written September 18th, 1997. Painting a picture of what was to be a closeness to regularity, a far from superiority, a conscience of value unknown and kept, but the great waterfalls of knowledge quench my thirst of love and understanding. Seeming so uncaring that I paint another picture of vacant mirages of what I so long to set free, free of the binding shackles that vanquishes all the possibilities of lifelong development and shuts out the means of hearing the words spoken out of such inflection that even when I hear its name, I shake, quiver, roll out in my sleeves. I can't even get through this. This is horrible. Of what I wanted to be part of, which is his. But 7 days so this happened, and the laws of gravity took effect to set my bleeding heart into. I can't even get through this. Magnificent world, plummeting endlessly down to the forsaken earth where I was to dwell in the midst of her shadow. An echo of feelings oversweeps me as I see you alone with your head aflame in luxury, withstanding all the absence of me. Or is it to be my inmost desire? configuring the way my life would be if only you were in it, sharing life experiences as they were randomly thrown at us, but so knowing so much bleeding pain swallows me in the rich chocolate waterfall that is so sweet to the taste that I cast aside the very light deep inside of me and paint a picture of what was to come of me in my dreary lifescapes. As a table turns and looks at you and threatens to cherish you for all her dying days, the walker walks in reverbrato tempo and that's all that happens until the end of lunacy, deducing the practice of anything whichever comes from me from behind. Holy shit, that was just a whole lot of nonsense. Here it is, even 10 years after I wrote this. Oh God. This was written in 1997. I was 17. Oh my God. That was awful. All right, so here is the response that I wrote to that mess from 2014. This is 2014's response to that awful piece of shit. That was awful. Okay. Is there regularity to that superiority you desire? You know your values and your value. Why view them with contempt? My dear child, you know nothing of this love, this longing. What do you know? What you do know is the great waterfalls of hormones, and that thirst for love you crave is quite the undertaking, and the pain it causes may just in fact lead you to the undertaker with how vicious it can be. You paint a picture of what you long to set free, and what is that, my child? Would you really want to cut out that development like a splinter, use the razor's edge to gouge your flesh despite the thick callus that will inevitably make you stronger, but not hard? Sometimes what you so desire is what you'll never receive, and in that respect, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. You hear the words spoken with inflection, those who say I love you, like they're ordering dessert from the menu, and you continue to hear them whisper I love you, even through adulthood. You hear the same, but neither they nor you grasp the concept of what love truly means. They're just words until actions are met at the crossroads. You desire acceptance, but haven't the vaguest conception of what acceptance is, because as it is right now, you don't accept yourself. That insignificant shell, that the poet in you, that is your life. Why crawl away from it in contempt of yourself? In embarrassment? Embrace it. You're wonderfully awkward, a dreamer who configures words into stretches of run-on sentences and grammatically imperfect balances of unpredictable strains of emotion that coagulate into the mess you call poetry. 7 whole days you've crushed on this boy, and you allowed yourself to break your own heart, because he, like the rest, will always be unattainable. They will remain consumed with themselves and that damnable social allure. You fell into the wayside of their attention, and neither your words nor poetry will gather their broken pieces and arrange them within your heart, for at this point they don't have one and therefore cannot mend yours. To you, language takes over the stupidity of youth. Jealousy consumes you. It's like a disease that rots the core because, my dear child, love will come in its all due time. For it to be true, you must patiently wait and learn to recognize it when a bitch slaps you into reality. It's not until you get older when you realize that love is not living in someone else's shadow. Love is sacrifice and acceptance. Love is unconditional. And my dear, love at your age has its conditions. Young love is not a constant, nor an anchor to hold you in place. It wavers like a branch on a tree as the wind passes through it. The leaves rustle and they adjust and descend. Attention is garnered for different leaves as they begin to fall. I can see you standing beneath it, caught within the autumn colors, and your attention is at a deficit. There are too many to see, so stop shaking that damn tree. Stop watching those leaves fall. If you wait, a seed will descend, and from it will grow something new, meant only for you. That echo you hear, it's your common sense telling you that although you are alone now, love will find you in its due course, and that feeble attempt you made to configure your life and imagine how it would be is nothing but a shadow of dreams, of wants, not needs. And life, as it so happens, will come careening in its unexpected ways. He's fine without you. Why are you in pain? My child, you have no idea what pain is, especially regarding the train wreck relationships that are headed your way. Go ahead and paint that picture, but paint it as you go. and watch and learn from that light at the end of the tunnel, for it will run you over 12.5 times until you learn from those mistakes and learn from this, that what you desire now won't last, and only when you really find love, you know it's forever, and yes, it will drive you to lunacy, to that there is no end. When the table turns to look at you, it is he who will love you in return. It is he who will teach you that love is commitment, love is respect, love is understanding, and love is unrelenting and loyal. It digs its claws in and pierces your heart. Love is an evolution of souls on the same journey, and it will continue to grow despite whatever comes from behind. So there you guys have a few poems from like that 17-year-old me poem, which was an absolute mess, and then my sarcastic, scathing, "What is wrong with you, child? I want to reach through the page and shake her." So anyways, hope you enjoyed the poetry. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I will share again some other time. I got writing I've got to get done today. Talk to you later. Bye.